Level up your hunting game and join the cause. Help preserve small-town Texas hunting culture and become a more successful hunter by learning the best ways to squeeze the most out of your budget and precious time out in the field. Welcome to the Feed Bandit Podcast. Here are your resident bandits, Richard Kinchlow and Jimmy Byrne.
Whoa, first time I heard that. It talked.
Yeah, and I had to approve it.
I never heard it say recording in progress.
Yeah, I'm actually really stunned that it was like so 1970s. It sounds like the one of the recordings from that Matthew Broderick movie, War Games. It's the greatest movie of all time, by the way.
A Gmote.
Oh, it is. Great game. Or great movie.
Recording in progress.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you ready to do this?
Right.
All right, howdy, folks. Welcome back to the Feed Bandit Podcast. Jimmy here, joined by old Corn Bandit. How's it going, Corn Bandit?
Well, I'm doing fine, sir. And yes, sir, doing fine. We are sitting here in July. Almost in July, and the weather could not be better. Golly, I mean, this has been something really, really cool. All the summers I've been alive, I don't think I've experienced any. Well, like 2005, 2015.
Well, I'll tell you when it was. 2017. And here's how I remember this.
All right.
That was when Jeb was born, my son.
All right. Yep.
He was born on June 17th. And let's see, about a week later, this is when we were at the house in the Farmer's Branch.
Gotcha. And
about a week later, we had him sitting in his bouncer outside with us, and we were having a fire in the backyard.
Right.
Wow. We don't usually do that in June in Texas, right?
No.
Or Dallas and everything. And we had him in the bouncer, and I brought out this big shop fan from the garage.
Right.
I kind of like angled it to where it'd blow the smoke away. So the fire.
Well, I remember that. I actually think I remember you telling me that, because I'm like, a fire, and I thought, well, God, were you in Wyoming or something like that? I mean, that is crazy.
So it wasn't, kind of like this, like it is on this day that we're recording this podcast.
Absolutely,
not bad. Not bad at all. Now, granted, it was probably warmer than we normally would want to do a fire. However, when it's been really damn hot and all of a sudden it goes to like 80 or a little above, it's like, oh, it's fire weather.
Right. Oh yeah.
Cold front.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw some deal on YouTube today. There's some weather guy posts, like, he just sits there all day and posts something. He said in the little picture thing on the video thing said something to the effect of, Arctic blast. And I actually started thinking to myself, God, if it truly is some sort of a major front like that, you could be looking at a scenario where, are the blue-winged teal gonna maybe pick up early? I mean, that would be incredible. That would be very interesting. Yeah, I mean, so I've seen blue-winged teal at the Rancho Bandito as early as mid-August. So,
you know what these Arctic blasts portend?
Yeah,
global warming, of course.
Oh no, of course, absolutely.
Because no matter whether it's really hot,
yes,
or unusually cool,
right,
it's always because of global warming. So,
of course. It was that if it's really getting so hot, why was it so damn cold last winter?
Right.
Learn to eat rocks, people. That is one of the best. One of the YouTube videos that stands up to the test of time.
Especially now, right?
Oh God, big time.
Well, we got a little treat here tonight. For the folks that have been sitting at the edge of their seat since our last podcast.
Sorry,
we teased the results of a little experiment, if you will. that you've titled Battle of the Deer Protein Brands.
Yes.
Double Down versus West Feeds. We'll call
right.
it round 2.
Round
Fight.
Yeah. No, it just, we had such a good time doing the last one we did. And I think that was 2019 because we didn't do it last year because of the Contra virus. Or did we do it? No, we didn't do it last year. No.
You did. You did part 1, right?
Oh, okay. I thought.
Yeah, the part 1 that you talk about.
Idiot. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Sorry about that.
The first part.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we did the first one last year. Yeah, you're right. And it was really the objective behind this, in my opinion, was it very, very simple. Very, very simple. And I think the goal was to see, okay, what do the animals prefer? The white-tailed deer, which protein, back then, which protein do they like? The black-buck antelope, the axis deer, and back then we were testing Double Down because obviously they're still the new upstart and the protein market. Of course, they're tremendous now. I'd say they're definitely one of the top brands, if not the top brand. As far as desirability, people are really going after it. We have West Feeds. It's our friends off of I-35 in West Texas, not the geographical location, the actual town. And we had the Purina Antler Max. So that was definitely a fun test, and it was really interesting to see what they liked and what they didn't like, or not what they didn't like, but what they ate first, rather.
Yeah, and you say you want to find out what they like.
Yeah,
it's also an economic reason, right? Because if you can find out what they like more,
right,
you're not going to waste your time spending money on what they don't like. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting to see, to find out. There's so many factors that go into it, But I like the Feed Bandit. The trough idea and how you kind of modified that to the new idea. I guess what might be good is to maybe give just a quick overview of how round 1 was tested.
Right.
Maybe what happened, but then why you did what you did for round 2.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, round 1 we did in just a basic trough. Again, we made, as Jimmy said, we made a big rectangle. I actually made it, which let me tell you, that's something else, because my carpentry skills, they ain't up to par with Jesus. He was a carpenter, and yeah, it wasn't very good. In fact, the first one that I made, or the first version I made, one of our very, very dear friends who is very skilled with a hammer and saw and screwdrivers and all that kind of stuff. He said, "What do you feed now? They're giraffes." The thing was like, it was like 6 foot tall, and I'm thinking, God, how did I screw this up? So after I cut the legs down, and then I put it out there and I put it in the back of my truck. I'm loading it by myself. I'm like, this thing's gonna fall apart before I get there. So thankfully, another one of our very skilled friends ended up putting these little triangle wedge things to support the legs. Anyway, so we finally got her launched, and it was a lot of fun. We put in 3 different places, and again, we were just simply testing, what was the desired protein by those animals. So the first spot we went to, and something we got to mention is that we talk about this kind of in the first piece, is that Purina Antler Max had been fed on that pasture before. Now, it had been some time since we had fed that. We moved to a different blend on the on that pasture at Rancho Bandito. But in fact, I think it had been upwards of 2 years. And so that's why, we put that out there, because we just wanted to make sure everybody knew. And sure enough, at the first location, both the whitetail, the axis, and the black buck just devoured. Just destroyed the Purina Antler Max. In fact, I don't think it was. I think it was a couple of days and it was gone. The second feed that came in, I guess the one that came in second will be West Feeds. They plowed through that, and then they would have destroyed the Double Down as well, had it not poured rain like 3 days in a row, and then that got that searing, miserable heat, and basically turned the rest of the double down into a gigantic maggot-infested brownie. So that was the first test. We moved it to a different part of the ranch, one that was kind of one of our outlying pastures. A lot of visitation by deer, though. Thought it was going to be a great spot, and it was, just wrong species. Night one, it was pummeled by the hogs. They destroyed it. The coons got in there too, and boy, it was miserable. But funny enough, the coons were up there and they just ate themselves stupid for 2 solid weeks. They worked it. The pigs worked on it as well. And I swore on that day, checking those cards, so last summer, I guess, that I said, you know what? I'm coming back there at trapping season. I'm going to trap all of those damn coons because they're making a living there. And of course, you go to our video that what we just posted a couple of days ago, and sure as hell, I ended up going there and catching 5 coons. So we haven't had any on that protein feeder ever since then.
Good video. It's we embedded that in this blog.
Yes, so we did. Yes, thank you. Yes, that's right. And so yeah, we did that, and then the third place we went back onto kind of the same pasture that we did the first test. This was, I guess at this point it was late July, and I was really kind of thinking that we would get some really, really good results, but it was terrible. I mean, nothing touched it. Now we had that rain, and we got a little more rain before, but they just never touched it. So that was it. So, again, the first spot started off real hot. I was excited about it. It was fun. We got some really, really cool pictures, as you'll see, and you can go back and look at the first one too. But it was disappointing, really, kind of for the remainder of the test. So, I really gave it some thought during the season and said to myself, God, I want to do this again, but how can I do it to where, the hogs aren't so bad, the coons aren't so bad, the weather isn't so bad. And that's when the idea kind of dawned on me. Okay, well, God, what if I just put these in some protein feeders? I'll find some of the protein feeders that we've got laying around that we're not using. Okay, and both of them are like 300 pound capacity, something of that nature. I'll use those, and we will give it a test, and we'll see what happens. And then it just really from there it kind of morphed into several different things. I said to myself, well, God, if I'm going to be testing, brands of protein, I limited it to 2 this time. So the second test was just West Feeds versus Double Down,
and it was nice to do it on kind of 2 smaller companies instead of Purino, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And ironically enough, both are Texas-based companies, which of course is what we love to support. But yeah, no, thank you for pointing that out. I didn't even think about that till you mentioned it. So, again, I said, okay, all right. Well, again, the initial, what we're trying to find out here is, okay, again, what do the deer like? But it's in a little bit more of a controlled setting where the environment hopefully won't be so bad. I'll try to do a little earlier in the year, so we can kind of catch them, maybe in the, in the spring and into the early summer. We'll see what happens. Okay. And then, as I was preparing to go out there, and we'd bought the protein, we had out to set up the feeders on one location, I said to myself, man, wait a minute, we can really expand this thing to not only be able to tell people, okay, guys, it seems like the deer preferred X brand, but what if we conducted this test on a pasture that had never been fed deer protein? And then we'll take it a step further. What if we'll use feeders that are, that everybody can buy. Okay. Meaning they're not the 1,000-pound, super high density steel feeders. Okay. So we'll just use regular feeders that cost a couple of $100. And so then it really became kind of a multifaceted mission here of trying to figure out, not only what brand of protein that they seem to prefer, but, how, when were they going to hit it? How long would it take them to get in there to actually feed? And then, because again, they have had no experience to it. Would they be able to eat out of the protein feeder? Would they prefer it? I mean, we all know that they will, but I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how long it's going to take. And I think a lot of people have asked those questions. They'll go out there and they'll set up their protein feeders, and then they'll come back, 2 weeks later, and they'll say, "Oh, dude, they're not hitting my protein feeder. Why? What's going on? What's wrong? Is there something wrong with the protein?" So again, this what I guess what I intended to be just a very simple study really morphed into this big, really kind of this big, multifaceted science experiment that's been really cool.
Awesome. Let's set it up then. Okay, so you mentioned kind of standard feeders instead of the super expensive gold-plated feeders that can be out there at the same time. Right. These are one is a standard 55-gallon drum barrel feeder.
Yep. It was like you say, it was a 55-gallon drum feeder. Had a you could see it in the pictures, of course, had a drop down feed tube with 3 or 4 ports on it. It was pretty rinkety. It was something that we had kind of put together quite some time ago. So we had to kind of seal it up. But again, I think using that feeder was a good test for the regular Joe who can't get out there and afford this. Like you said, this gold-plated feeder. So that was the first one that we did, and we put the double down in that one. The other feeder that we used was a feeder that our good friend loaned to us. It was a Boss bucket feeder. And I think that one, the capacity on that one was probably 300 pounds as well. But again, super, super light feeder, really easy to move. I was actually able to pick it up, not with feet in it, of course, but and the Boss bucket feeders are fairly inexpensive. So yeah, that was the feeder setup.
And you set them up in such a way that it wouldn't be like, I'm going to go to this one because it's the first one I come to.
Right.
Meaning like you look at a lane or something and you choose one over another. I mean, they're fairly, close. They're not on top of each other, but they're close to where it's easy to get to either one.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so kind of the setup was, again, it was a pasture that had never been fed deer protein ever. Okay. Now they had been fed deer corn, and they've been fed deer corn for about 2 years now, but never deer protein. And because there are hogs in the area, and you can see it on the pictures, we actually used their feeder pen. They've got a little 4-foot feeder pen, and you can't see it, but they're in behind, kind of where the camera is. There's a broken down corn feeder that the hogs had gotten to, I think, in December. So we did have a corn feeder there, but again, hadn't been functioning since at least December. We started this test in March, but so it in that barrel did have corn left in it.
And you say in here, might have liked to have started it earlier, right?
Yeah,
but
sure.
a lot went on.
No, it was kind of crazy. And you're exactly right. I really, 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 really wanted to get this thing kicked off in January because I want, because again, that's the time we always talk about. All right, get your protein feeders going, folks. Is in January, where the bucks are worn out, the does are worn out from being chased. It's cold. So that's when I really wanted to get started, but of course, as usual, doesn't happen. So I think early to mid-March is when we officially launched the initiative.
March 28th or 18th?
Oh, okay. 18th. So that would definitely not be mid-March.
Well, it was March 18th, I guess.
Oh, March 18th. Okay.
Assuming the date is correct.
Of course they are. Jeez. Yeah, of course they are.
Well, you might have put it out there actually before that, I guess, because obviously you didn't put out all the pictures on the blog that you got there.
Oh yeah.
Talk about how many pictures you got.
Oh my God. we got close to Let's see. We again March 18th through the late May. No, did we go into June? Early June? I don't have them in front of me, but I think late May or early June. I think it was early June. And every time we pulled the camera card, and then so while we're there, we'll talk about it. We had a trail camera that was going off every 2 seconds. Okay. So that way we could see, when the deer entered the pen, what they were doing. I mean, we could see every twitch of the ear. So it was just firing pictures off. So, for the last couple of months, I had been checking these cameras and I was thumbing through 2,000 pictures, every week, kind of doing the analysis on that stuff.
Pretty cool. I guess you saw a lot of stuff out there.
Oh, we did.
Did you get any birds flying by or anything like that?
We really didn't. We didn't get any birds. We got turkeys.
Yeah.
No hogs, which was amazing. It was we didn't see a lot of extracurricular game out there. So
no mountain lions yet.
No pasture kitties. No, none of that. So
awesome. Okay, so just to recap, you got double down and west feeds and call it run of the mill everyday feeders.
Absolutely. Yep.
Out on a pasture that's never fed protein, or at least not in 20 years. So it's probably never.
Yeah, since we've owned it. Yeah, exactly.
So a nice virgin territory, if you will.
Yep. Big
and
time.
Okay, so we got a camera set up that's going off fairly often. You got a lot of pictures. All right. So take us through it.
Yeah. So I had no idea what to expect, and again, this kind of goes back to the whole, you hear all the folks saying, well, I didn't like my protein. There's something wrong with it. Or, there could be a mountain lion or illegals in the area. I mean, all kinds of stuff, NASA. And, but it was absolutely amazing. I got, again, when I was checking this camera, in the beginning, I wasn't getting 2,000 pictures a day, okay, or 2,000 pictures every 2 weeks. I was getting more, a couple hundred, and I was only getting a couple hundred because that's where there were no deer in the feed pen. There were for almost 3 weeks, I believe it was 3 or 4 weeks, we had no deer visit the protein feeders. None. Now you ask, what was tripping the camera? Oh, it was deer. It was deer outside the pen. There were deer outside the pen that were just browsing naturally.
They just weren't coming into the protein feeders.
They wanted nothing to do with the protein feeder. It was absolutely crazy. And so of course that's where, again, we've been talking about it for years now, supplemental feeding. You don't want the protein to be their only, substance you got out there to eat. It needs to be a supplement. But it was absolutely crazy. I mean, I had 800 pounds worth of feed, in these feeders, and those deer had no desire, nothing, didn't want to touch it or anything. So I said to myself, my gosh, this is fascinating. I need to write this down because this is good information for people. I said, but I want to start seeing some deer here. What can I do to get some deer in here? So as we mentioned, we have the corn feeder that again had the legs knocked out of it, and there's just a big corn barrel on the ground, but it's sealed up good and tight, so nothing could get in it. So I popped the top off that thing. I got a little bit of hand corn and just spread it just lightly outside of the feed pen, and then I put a little bit in there. And then sure enough, not too much later, here they come. And that's when, in my opinion, kind of the test really started, because you can see them in there eating the corn, and then you can see them coming up to both protein feeders. I'm like, man, what is this stuff? And that's when they start to consume it.
What's interesting is, so you got a lot of pictures of deer coming to the pen, let's say, but not either jumping in or coming
Right.
close enough to the protein feeders to eat.
Right.
But they're still coming to the pen, even though the corn feeder wasn't running.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they're used to going there. But you needed to kind of bait them in with the corn that they still kind of had, I don't know, latent memory of, I guess.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think that they were naturally in that area because of the browse. I mean, it was a really, really good deer area. I mean, it's full of browse.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I think that corn does have a fragrance to it. It does have a scent. And that's what they were smelling. That's what they were like, man, hey, this is familiar. And that's what brought them in. Of course, while they were in there, I think they kind of took a nibble of the protein, and here we go. It just was crazy. So, kind of lesson learned. I truly believe if you're starting a supplemental feed program where you think the deer in that area have ever had deer protein, if you want to get your money's worth and get them going on it quickly, I think you should blend it. I think you should, maybe a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 bags of protein to 1 bag of corn. And then eventually they'll stop. They'll eat the corn, of course, you put it in there, but then you can go to straight protein.
Right. That's a interesting little thought there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the first one of the first big lessons learned from this thing.
Right. Yep.
All right. So talk about a little bit about some of the pics you got from the weather, the rain and stuff. Yes. There's a cool pic in the blog.
Yeah.
That shows, I mean, it's not quite sideways rain, but it's definitely 45-degree angled rain. Oh, so it's coming down.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. And again, that trying to, this information is for folks that are looking to start in a protein feed program. And again, we don't have one of these fancy, protein feeders. We've got some more inexpensive ones, maybe one that's even homemade, so contending with the weather, especially March and April when it typically rains, is something you got to deal with. We definitely had our fair share of weather, and it did cause a little bit of cloggage, and we had to take care of that, for sure.
So along those lines, around, I guess, in the rain and everything, you had to unclog it. But you say a little over the first 2 weeks,
right, after
you threw the corn out and they started coming in,
right,
the visits to both Double Down and West were fairly close. The number of visits. Now, talk about what you did. Now, when I say the number of visits were fairly close, I mean I had to get that number from somewhere. So you did some intense studying, if you will, of these pictures and tallying. Talk about that.
We really did. First of all, we were not compensated by Double Down or by West Feeds to do this. This was just purely something we're doing for every Texan out there who's wanting to start a protein feed or a protein program. And so the best thing that I could think to do was, again, set that camera up for a delay of a couple of seconds. And so my goal was to sit there, and I have my Big Chief tablet and my number 2 pencils, and I would sit there and document. Okay, when a deer entered into the pen, what did it do? Did it go to the Double Down feeder? Did it go to the West feeder? And then it was kind of my duty to try my damnedest to not to double count. Because I don't want to count a doe that ate at the Double Down feeder and then went out a picture, but then came back and ate at the Double Down feeder. Mm-hmm. So I was really conservative. If I wasn't sure, I just didn't count it. And there were several instances where the deer would go to the West and then they go over to Double Down. So I counted those because that's fair. That's fair. But that was kind of my methodology in trying to make the determination who kind of won this battle. And again, it wasn't easy, because we had a bunch of deer in there, and really the numbers kind of continued to pick up, and I contribute a lot of that to okay, we get through spring green up, it starts to warm up. In May we didn't have a whole lot of rain. forage starts to kind of dissipate, not a whole lot, not like the summer, right? But you dissipate a little bit nonetheless. And so I think that had something to do with it.
Mhm.
But so that was kind of my goal, and I just put it on a big Excel spreadsheet, and that's how I tracked it.
So you said the first 16 days post corning. So Double Down had 21 visits, and West Feeds had 18. So I mean that's fairly close. I mean that's I mean what you have to do to count that and try not to double count and everything. That's pretty impressive.
You know? Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. Yeah. And the other thing that I did was, I didn't, I would start a new tab for each, I called them camera pulls, and I would use I'd use the date that we pulled the camera, so if we pulled the camera on, Saturday, April 25th, that's what I labeled the tab as. And so I really didn't have any idea who was winning, who was losing per se. Until I put everything together. So that was kind of a fun little experiment, putting everything together.
All right. Well, jump back real quick and talk about what happened when you unclogged, because I think that, takes you to another kind of interesting observation just of deer behavior and how.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and this was something very interesting. And again, this test just kind of brought out a lot of thoughts that I really hadn't thought about when it comes to, to feeding deer and whatnot. But we did have a clog in the West feeder. So that was the Boss bucket feeder. So, or the Boss feeder. So I was doing my damnedest to obviously try to fill protein. Because again, I didn't want to skew the numbers for Double Down. That's obviously not fair. Okay. But, so I actually I think I had a Home Depot bucket with me. And so when I pulled that head down, thankfully the clog came right out and I was able to secure it back in, dump some of the feed in that I caught in the bucket, but never perfect. I did lose a lot. I did lose some West feed, deer protein in the, right below the feeder. And it was absolutely fascinating that they really for quite a while, it seemed like they were eating that protein brand exclusively from the ground. It was just bizarre, and I think, it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, man, why are they doing that? I figured that, maybe some of the eye level, and then it just dawned on me, it's probably more natural for them. They spent their whole entire lives bending over, or I guess not bending over for them, but putting their head down to feed this way. So it's probably natural that they're, that they want to eat this way. But that's what they did. They did not touch the tubes or anything until that protein was mopped up.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I think that's a good kind of thought about why they were doing that. That's interesting.
Yep.
Although, I mean, you could also say, the tubes aren't that high. They're kind of like at the level of when they're walking. You know exactly. What I mean? But you're right. I guess when they're, eating forbs or whatever on the ground, they maybe kind of associate, head on the ground with eating more. And again, it goes back to the point that, they're not used to the protein totally yet. Right. There. You never know. It's.
Well, and I think that because of this, I think that's why you see companies like there's a Texas company in the hill country called Lamco, and Lamco, I believe Lamco was one of the first companies to really put out a big trough, and they're extremely popular. And so that, it's on the timer and it just spits out protein at X amount of time. And of course the deer hammer it. And I think it's real natural for them just to feed like that. So, that'd be interesting to see if there's any real science to that.
Okay. Well, you also counted, the number of times they hit what was on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. You say I was very close as well. I mean, you said Double Down 76 times and West Feeder 86 times.
Right.
Or West Feed, 86 times. So West Feeds is a little more this time, but I mean, 76 to 86, that's pretty dang close. It wasn't a huge kind of win either way.
Right. And that was protein on the ground. Is that right?
Well, no, let's see. Hold on. I'm trying to. Okay, we don't. Good question. Did I misread that here? Let's see.
No, that sounds like one of the last weeks.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, you're talking about how the deer and raccoons. I guess the raccoon. You got a lot of raccoon pictures on the ground.
We did. We did get quite a few of them. Now I was surprised about how many. I thought we'd see a hell of a lot more, to be honest with you. But they, first of all, kind of like the deer, they didn't come in at first, and then second of all, they really seemed to prefer the double down.
Okay, what you were saying was,
yeah,
when there was some on the ground, you were counting the numbers that were eating out of the feeders. Still,
correct, right,
until the ground was clean, basically.
yes,
So sorry, but I'm slow tonight.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Very scientific. It's Stephen. I'm the Stephen Hawking of your
Right.
science. Yeah.
But there's a lesson learned here too. You know, when you're talking about or asking the question, maybe rhetorical. Does it make sense to purchase kind of a low trough style feeder?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and that's that Lamco.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are others, but I know the Lamco feeder is one that you can just climb right into it. That being said, I think you do have a high coon predation, but again, that's when you use those coon cuffs and try to trap them out there. Weather would be a problem too. If it pours rain, then you're in deep doo-doo. But just the chance you take, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So talk about the doe versus buck thing, because you noticed a little difference there.
I did, and I think this was kind of the biggest. This was kind of the biggest difference between the two brands of protein. It just was bizarre. Is that what you're alluding to?
Yeah. So you're
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So when it came to the does, the does seem to, and whether they're older or younger, God, they had a really good, which is what you want to see. They had a really good mixed bag of ages, during visiting these two feeders. But the does never really seemed to prefer one brand to the other that I could tell. And again, I would see them kind of bounce, back and forth sometimes. The bucks, on the other hand, was a little bit different, especially the one real mature buck. And when I say real mature, I'm thinking 3.5, 4.5-year-old. He was exclusively double down. And he was exclusively double down to the point until double down ran out. We did have a double down and I think I put the picture in there. It's absolutely crazy. It's like it just started to pour out. I mean, thankfully it was at the end of the test, but it just all of a sudden started to dump out, and I got a mid dump shot of it. But you can watch the progression of this older buck. He came in the same way every single night, sometimes twice a night. And he was distinctly bigger and followed the same pattern. And he would go right to the double down. So I know the double down fans are really enjoying that, but it's true. He really liked it. And then once the double down ran out, and of course there was a pile below it, and once that got nice and nasty, he did end up going over to the West Feeds, but he did prefer double down. Without a doubt.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
I guess either that says, well, I wouldn't say that necessarily means, bucks like double down more than West Feeds.
Right.
But I think what's interesting is maybe it shows that that individual deer have tastes, maybe like we do in a sense,
For sure.
Because you saw other bucks at the West Feed.
We did.
Feeder.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily. Absolutely. It was just that one guy. So that's
Just that one particular the
he has a
one-
unique taste.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, yeah. The one big buck, quote unquote, that I had there, he preferred Double Down.
Would you
without a
say?
doubt.
Would you say overall though, the Bucks preferred in general? Not maybe not. It didn't sound like it was a huge, overwhelming, win, if you will,
Right.
for Double Down over West
Right.
for Bucks.
Right.
Is that right? But I mean, would you
Yes.
say? Would you say it was? What was the ratio? Do you think?
Oh,
Stuff on top of your head.
That's a really good question.
Because it's in the article, you
tend
to lean towards the Double Down winning on the Bucks side. But I was just curious, kind of like
yes, no, I do, and something that I just kind of thought about, and I don't think I put it in there, is birds of feather flock together, and I say that because these deer, when they are the bucks will travel together. That's what they do. And so I think it stands to reason they jump into the feed pen together, which they did. This guy was accompanied by several smaller bucks, and the ports were open, so they went and ate together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
he was the alpha buck, and they followed.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that, in my opinion, that was really kind of one of the biggest lessons learned, for me. Not lessons learned, but things to point out is that this guy really seemed to dig the Double Down. And with that being said, I think when we do this again, I'd like to try to do it in just January. Maybe we'll go to a different pasture that we know maybe has got a little more bucks to it, and we'll see if we can replicate it, or do they go back to West? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a great picture here. You mentioned it was the Phantom Protein Bandit dumping some of the protein out.
Isn't that crazy?
That's a pretty cool picture.
I mean, I don't know if there was a wind or something, but yeah, you can see it. It's mid dump.
Yeah, yep. That's funny. Didn't you say though the last 9 days officially of the test? I guess.
Yep.
I'm assuming you ended probably the official portion of the test when Double Down ran out.
Correct. Yes.
So really the last 9 days when there still was Double Down left.
Right.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, that for whatever reason, then West Feeds soundly beat Double Down
yes.
those last 9 days. So that.
I
wonder why that is.
That was yeah. And I think it kind of shows that you've got if you've got if you've got the protein feed there, especially with the does, they just didn't really seem to care, So when that ran out, they went to what they had available.
All right. Well, I mean, it was a 48-day test, right?
Isn't that crazy?
And both had visits over 100, more or less.
Yep.
But in the end, your count showed that the deer tended to visit, and probably those last 9 days really helped the stats. But
right,
West Feeds.
Yep.
So you say about 130 visits, more or less. To Double Down's about 100, more or less.
Right.
So you got West Feed helping the deer, all the deer in general.
Right.
Then you got Double Down, which the deer still loved.
Right.
However, it tended to be skewed towards the bucks a little bit more
Yep.
in the test.
Yep. Absolutely. So, this is obviously the first phase in this, and we'll take these results and we'll see if we can emulate them somewhere else. I think another really good test is, we'll go on to a pasture where we are serving, first serving. I always use that, but I know of a couple of pastures that we've got where we're feeding antler max on some places. So, maybe we go there and we try it. Okay, what are we doing here? Antler max versus, Double Down and West Feeds. If you've got some folks out there that, hey, they want to try to grow some bigger deer, or they want to change it up, who's gonna, what are they gonna prefer? So, yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and I think the data is really good, and I think I wrote the article there pretty well, and of course, if there's any questions you have, feel free to answer. Again, we were not compensated by either brand, so this was, again, just me purely trying to do this as fairly as humanly possible. And, again, hopefully it benefits my fellow Texans that are out there looking at, maybe starting a protein program. With that being said, also, the one thing that you cannot ever underestimate is really when it comes to growing bigger antlers, obviously that supplemental feed is important. It's a key element of it, but it's also the range conditions, and more importantly, genetics. So there's a reason why those deer in South Texas are so big. They got great genetics. They've got pretty decent forage as well for the most part.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, so and of course, so we've got that going as well. So, we'll do another test. We'll see how it turns out.
All right. Any idea of the price for Double Down versus West Feed? And are they hugely different, or?
Yes. Absolutely, they are. I know that the Double Down carries a more of a premium price. I believe it's anywhere from $14 to $15 a bag. I know that West Feeds, I believe, is $9 to $10 a bag, and I believe that Purina Antler Max, depending on where you go, is like $11 a bag. So, West Feeds is a little bit less expensive than the other ones. Ingredient wise, that's something we really didn't jump into this time, but I'd like to do it next time. I believe that the Double Down has got they've got traces of peanut and cottonseed in there, which, if that's the case, I mean that's extreme sources of protein right there. And God knows we know the deer love they love the protein the cottonseed. So maybe that's something we'll jump into, kind of more of a an ingredient analysis.
Yeah. So you're talking West Feeds is, I mean, it sounds about 30% less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the test here,
right,
overall, they had more visits to the West Feed.
They did,
but Double Down had a little more buck.
Correct.
There. So
correct.
Together, it's kind of like makes it all kind of even in a way.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it really does. It really does. So again, this is just one little. I to use our ISQS instructor at Texas Tech. This is just one data set. We have to have more quantifying data sets to really set up a good, thorough analysis.
Correlation is not causation.
Dude, I still have permanent neck injuries from that class because I was doing the woodpeckers. Oh man, my God, this is horrible.
Yeah, what's the R squared here?
Yeah. Oh God, absolutely terrible.
Hey, at least though we figured out how to manipulate the URL of the browser.
Absolutely.
The answers.
Junior hackers.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was totally pre website security and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you just
that's when it was still okay. It was still fun. Oh, you guys, what are you doing? Sorry. Yeah,
I'm not ashamed to say that I did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To get the answers.
Everybody did.
Yeah. Why is everyone getting 100?
Yeah, exactly. Well, everybody really loves statistics, but yet nobody's taking it for their masters. I don't know.
All right. Oh, geez, that's funny stuff.
But yeah, no, it was
Dr. Bremer.
Yeah, Dr. Bremer, absolutely. it was a really cool test. It was a lot of fun, and again, like I say, I wanna do it again. I've actually got another little protein. That program. I don't know if I told you. Remember that 300-pound all seasons protein feeder that just disappeared, and I was like, where is it? I can't find it. And Dad's like, I don't know where it is, son. And like, God, did we throw it away? Did the brontosaurus run it over? Well, I found it.
Where was it?
Oh yeah, I was in a barn on one of the pastures where it's not supposed to be. I found a treasure trove of failed projects and things of that nature. I'm like, oh, that's where that. It was like a graveyard of my dreams, literally.
Right.
But I found that feeder. Found that feeder. So for the next test, I'm going to use an all seasons 300-pound protein feeder, and then that Boss Buck feeder again, Boss Bucket feeder again. Awesome. Boss feeder. Is that what it is? Boss feeder? Boss Bucket? Any one of them.
Boss feeder? What? Well, yeah. Two different brands, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess they are.
Maybe. I'm trying. That's funny.
Yep, a lot of fun.
We should know this.
I know, no kidding, right? Yeah, if y'all have any questions or anything, just shoot us an email or do the whole social media thing. Again, happy to answer anything. And kind of give you my thoughts. But those are them. That's them. That's the big test. A lot of fun.
All right. Awesome. Well, if anyone out there is listening and you want us to test your product, please let us know.
Yes. Shoot
us an email at howdy@feedbandit.com, and we'd love to have the opportunity to give it an honest go. Like Richard said, we were not compensated for this test, and we wanted it that way so we'd be 100% kind of neutral here, right? An objective test as much as possible, as much as animally instead of humanly possible. So we showed you what we got, and check it out. We'll include the link to the blog in our show notes to the podcast. But as always, you guys could just go to feedbandit.com, click the link up there for blog. It'll be right there where you can see it. And you can also go back and check out last year's blog. And excuse me, I was trying to hold back a burp while I was saying that.
Wow.
Had some steak, some sausage tonight. So it's
good for you.
But yeah, well, you can go back and read last year's and then come back and see how we did a little differently this year.
Yep.
And I'm sure these tests will evolve.
Oh yeah.
To where maybe eventually we'll have like a control group and all this other stuff if possible.
Yeah.
Use Bremer statistics.
Absolutely. We'll have him come do it. Well, the double down protein feeder. Speaking of, I the one thing people are going to ask, and we didn't really address this is, okay, well, which one's better for their antlers? Which one can I feed that's going to grow bigger antlers? And of course, we can't answer that because we have no idea. Growing, again, like we were talking about, growing bigger antlers depends on, the range conditions, genetics, water availability, all that kind of fun stuff, Yeah. So what would be a really, really, really fun experiment, it would be a long-term experiment, is, if we could get one of those brands and put it on the pasture and just document the progress we make with that particular brand, for the, next couple of years and see, okay, maybe we can identify a 2.5-year-old 8-point that's, that's got a little basket rack and, again, we would be able to say definitively if this protein brand would really helped it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Something to think about.
Yeah. Or if you can't say it necessarily helped, you could say, okay, this is what happened to these deer.
Yeah.
Here eating this exclusively. And then right next door in this other pasture, that's divided by a high fence. You can they did not have this particular brand.
Interesting.
So that could kind of be your control group. So you monitor both sides, and then you compare a couple of years from now, what are the bucks looking like?
Yeah, no, totally.
In general, on average within those two pastures.
Right.
So then from there you can infer the success or the failure of
R squared equals pineapple. Exactly. All right. Well, yeah. Well, we'll look into that. It's July, so we got some time. But I probably want to get moving on that sooner than later.
Right. So contact us and we'll arrange that.
Yes, for sure. Yes, for sure. And speaking of, we are in the midst of doing another test right now for a mineral company. So we'll be, don't want to release the name now, but we've got some cameras and some tests going right now too. So hopefully we'll be releasing some of that info here in the next couple of weeks as well.
Awesome. So you're going to wrap that up in I guess end of July.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe even this weekend. Let's see what kind of.
Let's see if it's anything left. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. Now that we've had Noah's Ark came back, and we had 2 inches of rain at Rancho Bandito, and I mean, God, it's like the Congo out there. It's nuts.
Yeah,
it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Of course, you talk about dove season, and if it's really wet and all the tanks are full, that means the dove are spread out. And that makes me go something angry. We'll see.
Well, we still got time.
I know. God.
Let's say it stopped raining this weekend and literally didn't rain until September.
Yeah.
I think you'd probably be in good shape.
Oh, we'd be in good shape. But if we don't, I'll just tell God to bring his hairdryer down here and zap up all the tanks within 3 miles of ours, and we'll see. We'll see if he'd do me a favor like that. We'll see.
Well, he is through global warming.
Oh, that's very true. And God, never mind. Totally forgot. Yeah.
Don't you forget. Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. How can we forget?
All right. Well, that was fun. You got anything else you wanted to impart to the loyal listeners?
That's all I got. Support our friends. Support our Texas feed stores. Lord knows they need us now. The summers are kind of, if I had to guess, kind of a drought, but hey, we need to get out there, get those feeders rocking and rolling, especially those protein feeders. It's definitely not too late. I know that they're growing antlers, but they still got inches to go, and if they got fur on them, they're growing. And those does are still, they got fawns now, and most places they have fawns, so that protein is good for them. It helps lactation, all that kind of stuff. So keep them full. Support our small town feed stores for sure.
Perfect. Y'all heard him. Y'all heard old Corn Bandit there. You got your marching orders.
Yes.
All righty. Well, y'all stay tuned for another episode of the Feed Bandit podcast. Thank you as always for listening into this one, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Feed Bandit podcast. If you like what we discuss on the show, be sure to sign up to our email list to get even more killer hunting ideas, tips, tricks, and exclusive deals on innovative hunting gear and services delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up over at feedbandit.com or simply by texting the word bandit to 33777. See you on the next one, and remember, support your local feed store.